Pat McAfee went from being an NFL punter to building a business worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But football was only the beginning. From massive media deals to WWE and one of the biggest sports shows in the world, his rise is unlike anything fans expected. Let me break it down. Right now, ESPN and Pat McAfee's team are sitting across a table negotiating a number that would make him the highest paid employee in the network's history. According to reporting from The Athletic, ESPN is reportedly negotiating a new deal that could be worth more than $60 million per year, turning McAfee into one of the most powerful and highest paid figures in sports media. $60 to $65 million every single year. For a guy who used to boot footballs for a living, here's the number that makes this insane. Pat McAfee earned a little over $15 million during his entire NFL career as a punter. That's not per year, that's the whole career. 8 seasons, 2 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro nod, and $15 million total. It is even more stunning when compared to his NFL career. McAfee earned a little over $15 million total as a professional football player, and his next ESPN package could be worth roughly 4 times that amount every single year. Let that sink in for a second. Most punters finish their careers, cash a modest check, and fade into obscurity. For most punters, that would have been the whole story. 8 years in the NFL, $15 million in earnings, and a comfortable retirement before age 30. McAfee looked at that ending and said no thanks. Now, before you assume this new number just lands directly in his bank account, it doesn't. Not entirely. The $60 million to $65 million figure should not be viewed as a traditional TV salary that goes directly into McAfee's pocket, because McAfee's ESPN arrangement is unusual. It includes a production and licensing agreement for the Pat McAfee Show, which McAfee still owns, meaning a portion of the money covers the cost of running the show itself. He's paying producers, editors, travel, insurance, studio costs. The whole operation runs through him. Even after you strip out those expenses, the math is staggering. The production costs likely don't consume the majority of the deal. A reasonable estimate puts the show's operating costs somewhere between $8 million and $15 million a year, meaning even in a costly year, a $60 to $65 million ESPN package could still leave McAfee with roughly $45 to $55 million in gross annual value before taxes and personal expenses. And this isn't some brand new relationship. McAfee's already making real money at ESPN before any of this new number gets signed. Andrew Marchand reported that McAfee, a former NFL punter, is currently making around $30 million per year with ESPN. That includes more than $17 million per year for The Daily Show, plus additional compensation for College Game Day and other ESPN responsibilities. If the new number closes, McAfee would become ESPN's highest paid employee with the reported deal, above anchors who've been there for decades, above analysts with Hall of Fame playing careers behind them, a 7th-round punter, drafted 222nd overall, out-earning nearly everyone at the biggest sports network on the planet. This didn't happen by accident, and it didn't happen quietly. Before ESPN, there was FanDuel, a 4-year, $120 million contract that he actually walked away from. Before FanDuel, there was Barstool Sports, a podcast studio, and a guy who got cut loose by the Colts and decided he wasn't done being famous. Before any of that, there was an actual NFL career, one that people already forget was genuinely great, buried under everything he's built since. To understand how a punter ends up out-earning quarterbacks, you have to go back to where this all started. A kid from a small town outside Pittsburgh who almost didn't even get drafted at all. Before the podcasts, before the 8-figure deals, before any of it, Pat McAfee was just a kid in Plum, Pennsylvania, kicking a soccer ball harder than anyone else on the field. McAfee grew up in Plum, Pennsylvania, a small town just outside Pittsburgh, and was a 3-sport high school athlete at Plum High School, playing volleyball, soccer, and football. Soccer was actually his first love. Before he became a big deal on the gridiron, McAfee played soccer, his favorite sport. He had a leg. Everybody who saw him kick knew it. McAfee said on his show in 2020 that he'd been genuinely good at soccer, good enough to travel and play internationally, and that he had a cannon of a leg, though not much cardio, since he was built like a spark plug his whole life. And in his sophomore year, he won a national title in a local punt, pass, and kick competition. That leg turned into scholarship offers. His kicking ability eventually made him one of the top specialists in Pennsylvania and helped him earn a scholarship to West Virginia University, where he played kicker and punter for the Mountaineers. Here's where it gets interesting though. McAfee wasn't even supposed to be an NFL prospect on paper. McAfee wasn't invited to the NFL Combine despite having a fine college career, which was odd, because he attended the Senior Bowl, which basically makes you a shoo-in for the Combine. Instead of the Combine, he had to grind it out with private workouts. Instead of participating in the Combine, he worked out for the Indianapolis Colts, Dallas Cowboys, and New England Patriots, proving in those tryouts that he had what it took to play at the next level. And one of those workouts almost soured him on the team that would end up drafting him. The Colts special teams coach barely acknowledged him. McAfee later recalled the coach telling him flatly that he already had 2 other kickers he wanted, that he didn't even want to be running the workout, and that he was only there because general manager Bill Polian had made him show up. McAfee walked away from that day thinking he wanted to land anywhere except Indianapolis. Dallas didn't want him either in the end. They strung him along, then drafted a different kicker. So when McAfee's phone finally rang late in the 7th round, it caught him off guard. Just before the 202nd selection in that round, McAfee's phone rang. It was the Colts who had used the pick on him. Polian told him bluntly that the last punter Indianapolis had drafted lasted a decade with the team, and that they hoped for the same result. McAfee was stunned and honestly a little confused. It took him a moment to even process that they drafted him to punt, since the Colts already had one of the greatest kickers ever on the roster in Adam Vinatieri. So the day after the draft, McAfee and his dad drove to the nearest field to figure out, in his own words, how to actually punt the ball properly. It worked out. He made the team, won the starting job in camp, and got an all-time rookie season. For context, his first year, the Colts went 14-2 and made the Super Bowl. Though they lost to the Saints, he was named to the PFWA All-Rookie team for his trouble. From there, McAfee didn't just survive as a punter. He turned the position into a personality. Despite being a punter, McAfee had several notable tackles in his career, including a hit on Trendon Holiday in Week 7 of the 2013 season, about which TV commentator Chris Collinsworth said McAfee was going to be a legend among kickers. He finished his career with 21 solo tackles, the third most for a punter in NFL history. The Colts trusted him so much they made him their emergency quarterback. McAfee held the role of emergency quarterback at the Colts throughout his tenure with the team, and was one of only 4 punters in the NFL to hold the role near the end of his career. By 2014, he was arguably the best at his job in the entire league. The year 2014 was great for McAfee. He won AFC Special Teams Player of the Month in September, booted 69 punts for 3,221 yards, with a whopping 30 punts inside the 20-yard line, recovered his own onside kick, and earned his first Pro Bowl nod. Over the full stretch of his career, the numbers hold up against anyone who's ever played the position. During his 127 career games, he had 575 punts, averaging 46.4 yards per punt, with 193 pinned inside the opponent's 20-yard line, and his 4.54-second average hang time on 611 qualifying punts is a top 5 mark all-time among qualifying punters. So when people say McAfee was just a punter, they're skipping over the part where PFF later rated him the best player at the position over the last 25 years. Originally a 2009 7th-round pick by former Hall of Fame general manager Bill Polian, McAfee played 8 years for Indianapolis, becoming an NFL first-team All-Pro and 2-time Pro Bowler. But 3 knee surgeries and a fractured relationship with the front office were wearing on him. He cited his recent knee operation, his 3rd in 4 seasons, as a factor in his decision, as well as his fractured relationship with Colts general manager Ryan Grigson. 3 knee operations in 4 years had taken their toll on his love for the game, but he left on top as the best punter in the league. He was still young, still under 30, and instead of hanging around for a smaller check and more surgeries, he decided to walk. What came next is the part of the story most people actually know him for, and it's where the real money started. Retirement for most athletes means charity golf tournaments and the occasional broadcast gig. For McAfee, it meant immediately building something from scratch. Following his retirement, McAfee became a football analyst and a host of sports talk shows. He didn't wait around. Following his retirement from football at the close of the 2016 season, McAfee joined Barstool Sports, where he developed the Heartland division of the company in Indianapolis and hosted the Pat McAfee Show on Sirius XM channel Barstool Power 85. The seeds of the personality were already there while he was still playing. During his final season with the Colts, McAfee began to perform stand-up comic routines about his time in the NFL. That loose, unfiltered energy, the same thing that made him a fan favorite as a punter, became the entire foundation of his second act. The show didn't start as some polished network production. It started small, built with friends, on a shoestring budget, betting entirely on personality. After retiring, McAfee gathered a group of his friends and created the Pat McAfee Show, though none of them expected it to grow as much as it did. But the barstool arrangement didn't last. 2 years in, McAfee had a falling out over how the business side was being handled. In 2018, he left Barstool after a disagreement over the business side of the relationship and launched his own company, Pat McAfee Inc. That decision to own his own operation instead of working inside someone else's company is the single biggest reason he's worth what he's worth today. Through his own company, he kept building. Through Pat McAfee Inc., he built a growing digital media operation around the Pat McAfee Show, the pod, and other content, developing a loyal audience by blending sports commentary, athlete interviews, gambling discussion, comedy, locker room humor, and long-form daily conversation. Before becoming a television program, McAfee launched an audio and video podcast of the same name in 2017, and in 2018 he launched Pat McAfee Inc., paving the way for the show to air as a radio and TV program. The show kept growing platform after platform. What started as a podcast and digital media project eventually grew into a video, radio, and streaming operation, with deals involving platforms such as DAZN, Westwood One, SiriusXM, FanDuel, and YouTube. Then, in 2021, the first truly life-changing number showed up. In 2021, McAfee signed a massive partnership with FanDuel that was worth a reported $120 million over 4 years. To put that in perspective, that's roughly double his entire NFL career, paid out every single year for 4 years straight. That $15 million playing career total became an important comparison point in his media career. His FanDuel deal paid roughly double his entire NFL career earnings every year. This is the part that should stop you in your tracks. Most people, once they lock in a $120 million deal, ride it out to the very last dollar. McAfee didn't. McAfee and the team decided to walk away from that contract after just 18 months. 2 years in, he opted out of the contract to join ESPN, signing a licensing deal that was worth less money overall, but came with less overhead and a different type of creative control. He walked away from guaranteed money because he wanted control of his show and a bigger platform. That's not the move of somebody chasing a paycheck. That's the move of somebody building an actual company. And even before that FanDuel windfall changed his life financially, McAfee was already treating the money like it was disposable in the best way. In 2021, McAfee donated over $6 million to various charities after inking his massive deal with FanDuel, with the money going to youth programs, children's hospitals, and relief for survivors of domestic violence. He and his father run a foundation that's been quietly funding things in the background this whole time. McAfee's philanthropy includes the Pat McAfee Foundation, operated by McAfee and his father, Tim, which provides scholarships to the children of U.S. military personnel. So by the time 2023 rolled around, McAfee wasn't some podcast guy anymore. He was a guy who had already turned down over $100 million because he thought there was a bigger play out there. And it was called ESPN, and it came with something FanDuel never could: the biggest stage in sports. When McAfee left FanDuel's guaranteed money, he wasn't jumping into the unknown. He was jumping toward Disney. In May 2023, he opted out of the deal with FanDuel to then sign a 5-year, $85 million contract with ESPN to bring the Pat McAfee Show to the network. On paper, that's less total money than FanDuel offered, but the structure mattered more than the number. While there was significantly less money involved, the deal keeps the show on YouTube while simulcasting it on ESPN+. He didn't give up his channel. He didn't give up his voice. He just added the biggest broadcast network in the country as a distribution partner. McAfee himself barely acknowledged the specifics when reporters pressed him on it. Asked directly about the number, he brushed it off, calling it an interesting figure but declining to confirm anything concrete. Behind the scenes, the relationship that sealed the deal wasn't just business. McAfee's strong relationship with ESPN chairman Jimmy Pitaro and discussions with Disney CEO Bob Iger convinced him to join ESPN. Part of what made this deal so unusual is what McAfee actually kept. He didn't hand his show over to a network and become just another host. Furthermore, he retains complete control over all aspects of his performance, including the choice of guests, with a commitment to reducing the use of profanity. While ESPN handles much of the back-end work, McAfee emphasized that he personally pays his team and maintains complete control over production. ESPN wasn't taking a risk on a stranger either. They were betting the daily 2 to 3 p.m. slot on him outperforming their own in-house programming. The network believed McAfee's show would outperform SportsCenter and Max Kellerman's This Just In, which currently occupied the 2 to 3 p.m. time slot on ESPN. They were right. The show became a daily fixture. The real inflection point came when ESPN brought the Pat McAfee Show into its daily lineup. Today, the show airs every weekday, with the first 2 hours on ESPN and the full 3-hour version on YouTube. And ESPN wasn't just paying for a talk show. They were paying for a brand that touched football at every level. His deal is structured partly as a production and licensing agreement for the Pat McAfee Show, which he still owns, and partly as a talent agreement for his work on ESPN programs such as College Game Day, alternate broadcasts, and other network appearances. But here's the piece that gets buried every time somebody adds up McAfee's fortune. None of this even includes WWE. Besides being a podcast host, McAfee signed with WWE in 2020, where he works as a commentator and wrestler. He's not just doing color commentary from a desk either. He's actually stepped into the ring. Standing at 6'1", 233 pounds, McAfee went from the gridiron to the ring with the WWE. As an athlete and commentator, previously working with NXT TakeOver and the Kings of NXT, nobody outside a small circle actually knows what WWE pays him. Very little reporting has been done on McAfee's salary with the organization, but he stepped away for a hiatus in June 2025. Whatever the number is, it's stacked on top of the ESPN package, the YouTube ad revenue, the endorsement deals, and the sponsorship money. All of it running through the same company he refused to give up in 2018. Speaking of endorsements, FanDuel wasn't the only sportsbook name attached to him. To go along with FanDuel, McAfee has also inked a deal with DraftKings, another fantasy sports company. He's branched into apparel too. He's also signed a deal with Lululemon, which is a sports apparel company. Stack the ESPN money, the WWE money nobody can confirm, the endorsement checks, and the equity he holds in his own company after refusing to sell it off, and you start to understand how a punter's fortune stops looking like a punter's fortune at all. It starts looking like a media conglomerate that happens to have his name on the door. And that conglomerate isn't finished growing. There's a new number on the table right now, one that would dwarf everything that came before it. And it's forcing everyone in sports media to reconsider what a single personality is actually worth. So here's where all of this lands. Strip away the noise, and you're left with a guy who made $15 million punting footballs, then built something worth exponentially more than that once he stopped playing. Public trackers put his current net worth in a wide range, but even the more conservative estimates tell the story. According to Celebrity Net Worth, McAfee's net worth sits at $60 million, and his salary is $17 million. That's the floor. And it was calculated before the new deal on the table even gets finalized. Once you factor in a ESPN package that could run $60 to $65 million a year, stacked year over year, plus WWE money nobody has confirmed, plus ownership of his own production company, plus endorsements, the trajectory points toward a number that dwarfs even that. The show itself has become one of the biggest independent media properties in the country. His eponymous show has over 2.5 million YouTube subscribers and is simulcast live on ESPN. It's not just football talk anymore either. The longtime Colts punter has not been bound by football coverage, as his eponymous show covers the breadth of all sports and their intersection with popular culture. He's become a fixture in Indianapolis sports culture and a crucial part of college football and WWE coverage as well. The lifestyle has followed the money, though he stayed rooted to where it all began. McAfee, who rose to prominence as a Colts specialist, owns a mansion in Indianapolis, a home over 10,000 square feet, valued at nearly $2 million, per various reports. He didn't chase Los Angeles or New York. He stayed in the city that drafted him in the 7th round and gave him a shot nobody else wanted to give him. What's remarkable is how much of this he's given back along the way, using platforms nobody would expect. McAfee's field goal kicking contest on College Game Day was revealed to have raised over $1 million in Hurricane Helene relief during the 2024 season and over $600,000 for participants. A guy who used to kick footballs for a living turned that exact skill into a recurring charity event on national television. The negotiations happening right now with ESPN aren't just about McAfee's bank account. They're about what his role in football broadcasting looks like going forward. The Athletic report indicated that McAfee's role with ESPN's NFL coverage could expand, which means the version of Pat McAfee we're watching right now, the one hosting 3-hour daily shows, showing up on College Game Day every Saturday, occasionally throwing hands in a WWE ring, might not even be the final form. There's a bigger seat waiting for him inside the network's NFL coverage. And if that expands the way it's being discussed, the next deal won't just make him ESPN's highest paid employee. It'll make him one of the most powerful voices in how football gets covered in this country, period. Go back to where this whole thing started. A kid in Plum, Pennsylvania with a hard soccer leg and no combine invite. A 7th round pick a coach didn't even want. 3 knee surgeries and a fractured relationship with a general manager that pushed him out the door before 30. None of that reads like the origin story of someone who'd eventually be discussed in the same breath as ESPN's highest earners. But that's exactly the point. Nobody built McAfee's fortune for him. He turned a podcast recorded with his friends into a company he refused to sell off, refused to hand over creative control of, and refused to stay complacent with. Even when someone offered him $120 million to stick around, he walked away from that money because he thought there was something bigger out there. There was. Whatever number finally gets signed with ESPN, one thing is already settled. A punter who earned $15 million over an entire NFL career built something that will end up paying him more than that in a single year, doing exactly what he wants to do, on his own terms, with his name still on the door.